Welcome to Create Your Own Reality, a show about hope, inspiration, and encouragement. A program that will feature guests and topics that may inspire you to think about what is real and how you can create miracles in your life. Your host, Badeish Lange. Thank you for joining us on Create Your Own Reality. I'm your host, Badeish Lange, and my special guests are Paul Werder and Dan Duggan of Lionheart Consulting Incorporated. Both Paul and Dan are inspirational leaders, teachers, and specialize in organizational coaching. And today our topic is finding the heart in business. And you know, I really think, Paul, Dan, that is a very important subject, and it's why you're on the show. It's something that I realize, and other people realize that's going on in our culture, that something is really missing in the corporate world today. That doesn't mean every company is missing the heart, but we know who they are that don't have heart. We really, really do. Now, I understand, Paul, that you founded the company in 1983, and then a few years later, you came on to the scene as a partner, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So how long have you been with Lionheart?
Well, it's an interesting question, Badeish, because usually the way I answer that is to say 17 years.
Yeah.
Because I was a client for over 8 years before I actually joined Lionheart as a partner in the business. So I hired Paul to come in and help my company out and help me out, learning how to lead from the heart. And it became powerful enough and successful enough that I said, boy, I think I should probably leave what I'm doing and go join these guys and make a difference in the world. So.
Well, I think Paul saw something in you that was amazing, that he wanted on his team. And I think there must have been something that happened here spiritually that had you two look at each other and go, well, it took you long enough, right?
Oh, there's a story
that's
about
actually very true. I met Dan in a group of executives of about 20 or 25 sitting around a big table where I was doing a presentation. When I do presentations like that, I'm always looking for who's got their lights on.
Yes,
And Dan was certainly tuned in and paying attention, and I saw that he had something, a little spark in him that was attracting to me.
Yeah.
And so he was the one person I followed up with after that talk, and that's how we became clients.
Wow.
And,
That's wonderful.
and then when he did decide to leave his corporate position, I actually wrote down on a piece of paper, someday I think Dan will work with Lionheart and join me. But I didn't want to tell him. I wanted it to be his idea. And then when he called me 6 months later and said, let's have lunch, I thought, well, I think I'll bring that piece of paper just in case.
Well,
So,
I think that was a good intention, don't you?
Absolutely.
I believe in setting goals
Yes.
and putting your intentions down.
Yeah.
And you can add the energy manifests
Yeah.
sooner or later.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
It was just an intuition from my heart that I had a feeling that we were meant to work together.
Well, I'm glad that you understand intuition, because I think more and more people, men and women, need to understand that it's a part of their natural birthright and their physical equipment.
Yep.
And to use it is so wonderful and so fun.
Yep.
Okay, Paul, what do you mean by finding the heart in the corporate structure?
Well, the corporate structure is a group of human beings, and the heart of the human being is the essence of those people. It's their core goodness. It's the courage, the compassion, the patience, the strength to do the right thing when it's difficult to do the right thing. And instead of having businesses run by people with either healthy or unhealthy egos, and we all, like you said, don't know where the unhealthy egos reside, we try to take people to a deeper place of their humanity, which is what they really care about is making a contribution to the world, having their businesses serve humanity as opposed to, provide products and services that we really don't need, but they're very profitable, so to speak.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
And Dan, what do you think is what was the key that brought you into thinking about bringing the heart back to the corporate structure?
Well, it was kind of my own personal experience of I was very successful on the outside. I had grown an organization. We did very well. I moved up rapidly into the management ranks, but I was pretending to be whatever my picture,
Pretending.
my picture of what a manager should be, and it left me out of it. And over the years, I realized that I was wearing a mask, and
Yes.
and the person that was behind that mask rarely came out. And so there was this dissonance inside me. And at some point I realized that I was pretty empty on the inside. And I knew there had to be more, even though if you looked at the accomplishments that both the organization I ran and you know, again from the outside looking at me, I was pretty successful.
But it wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. There was no, the meaning was lost. And we talk about losing heart. I had lost heart.
Yeah.
So when I ran into Paul at that seminar that he mentioned earlier, and he started talking about relationships being the core of business, it was like bingo. The light went on. I said, of course. You know, we can have strategies, we can have great plans, but it's people that make things happen. And it's people working together that is really the magic. And to be working well together, you have to be authentic, and you have to be able to tell the truth, and you have to show up as you really are. And
You said something interesting there. You have to be able to tell the truth. I think there's so much that's been left out through the rungs of a corporation and how they have taken people and I forget what the word is, but it's sort of like isolated them down the chain. Where they were all connected before. Now it's everything. Only this person over here knows what's going on.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What is
It's a silo effect that
exactly
you're describing, right?
Exactly, and people lose contact with each other on a very intimate, more personal level in their lives. Now, for both of you, how did spirituality come into play for you, for both of you? I'll have you
For
go
me, it
first.
was learning the hard way. I came out of graduate school, top of the class, very gung-ho to do well and change the world in my chosen profession. And in 18 months, I burned myself out. I
Yeah.
literally was too sick to work at age 28 years old.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't get out of bed, you know, sore throat, wouldn't quit. The doctors didn't know what to do with me. And ultimately what I discovered over several months was that I was angry, but I didn't know I was angry. I didn't want to admit I was angry. I was too professional to be angry. But this anger was sitting here like a fireball in my throat, and I couldn't, you know, function. And after I went through, you know, some introspection, I kind of started a journey for what makes people happy. You know, I mean, I was very competent, but I didn't have that internal peace, that internal
Yes.
trust that I needed to actually have that competence make a difference in the world. So,
And just to slow down.
yeah, to slow down, to meditate. One of the doctors that I said, I think you ought to do some yoga or some meditation,
Yeah.
and I didn't even know what those were at the time.
I think the kids today coming out of college that are the gung-ho
Yeah.
types, I think that they're all going to
Right.
find that they're going
Right.
to hit that wall sooner or later
Right.
if they don't have that internal peace inside.
So like Dan said, I felt a little empty, and the emptiness turned into, you know, basically disease. Fortunately, it wasn't long-lasting. I was well enough in a year to go back to work, but it was the beginning of a journey, and one thing led to another until I found that there was a spiritual, you know, truth that really made a lot of sense, you know, not, you know, an understanding, but it actually made me feel good inside, and
Yes.
that's what mattered, you know, my
Yes.
experience.
Well, I always say that we're unique and we're here on Earth in our little cosmic spacesuits, but we're divinely different, each one of us in a vibrational force. And it's a different kind of language. They wouldn't understand that possibly in the corporate world, but you two have been around to know what I'm talking about. You're that unique, you're that precious. And once that preciousness is understood within the spirit of somebody, that's where you become the warrior. And
Yeah.
I think the two of you are, in fact, warriors. Now, I want to hear from you as far as how you found your spiritual, you know, bell ringing, so to speak.
Well, when I was a youngster, I practiced in a religion. I had a tradition that I followed, and I actually felt a connection with the divine at that time. But I separated myself really because I began to not buy into
Structure.
all the stuff, yeah, around that. And so I left it. So I would say that I found it again when I realized that there's this empty hole inside me that needed to be filled. And I was at first unconsciously, but then consciously seeking that fulfillment again, that connection with something bigger than myself.
Yeah.
And again, Paul was instrumental in that. I remember one day he and I were taking a walk around this lake, and we had to take a second walk around that lake because Paul started talking about this divine connection, and I was at first going, "What are you talking about?" And then realized that there was something to this, and I trusted him because we'd known each other for a long time, and something opened up inside me, and then I began through pursuing that and going after a spiritual connection to have experiences of that
Yes.
spiritual connection.
Yes.
So it wasn't in my head anymore. It wasn't an idea. It was an actual experience that I was having.
Let's talk about when you go into a corporation or a company. What is it that you see that a person is in a condition where they're lacking that heart? What's going on specifically that we could identify for our audience? You know, what are some of those keys that are really missing?
Well, you want to start?
They're stressed out, they're exhausted, they're fighting with one another. I mean, I was with two partners of a business just this afternoon where they have hardly been talking to each other for actually a few months.
Oh.
Yeah, and they're running a successful business and they're very, very accomplished people, but they haven't been talking. And because they had painful experiences between the two of them that they didn't know how to talk about. They hadn't been in their hearts, they'd been in their egos, and they felt bad. And they felt like the other one was, of course, the cause of the problem.
Yes.
And when they go into the blame
And judgment.
sure, that just makes everything worse, and then they keep bringing the worst out of one another. So in corporations where people are bringing the worst out of one another in a close team environment or when they're working together, that's a good indication that the egos and maybe the unhealthy egos are at play here. And there's a deeper, better place to go to find that connection and unity and trust that is needed for people to work together well.
Yeah. Well, I made a few notes here on the subject because I think it's so important, and it came from your website.
Oh.
People don't feel like they're key players anymore. Feel trapped, resigned to damned if they do and damned if they don't. Lack of support in trying to get things done. Someone who doesn't know how they fit in.
Right.
I thought those were pretty key too, because that's going on.
Yes. Those are clear indicators of lost heart,
Yes.
where people feel like they're not making a contribution, and they don't know what to do about it, and they do feel trapped in the situation that they're in, and they can't see past that to something bigger, a bigger truth. So that's some level of pain is usually where we get involved in meeting people in that place and helping them open up to bigger possibility. Yeah.
I think that it must be kind of exciting to be on this adventure as visionaries, working with these people where once that trust is established and once you get their attention, this other thing starts to happen, and to watch them open up and get it must be just...
Well, it is what it's all about. So
It is what it's all about.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Well, Paul, how does being discouraged and worried get in the way of the highest intentions?
The discouraged and the worry is our focus on the discouragement would be about what happened in the past, and the worry is about what might happen in the future.
Exactly.
And it takes us out of our present moment, and that's the only moment that we really have to bring our best next step to. When we talk about highest intention is life is going to go up and down. We're going to have uncomfortable and awful moments of life that we didn't want. This recession is a great example.
Exactly.
However, in that recession, we can either have our regrets from the past or our worries about the future consume our creative energy, or we can say, okay, in this moment, I'm not very happy with what's going on, but what's my highest intention? It brings us back to the opportunity or the possibility of, even with these cards on the table that I don't like, we can actually make something positive happen.
Well, doesn't it also force people to think outside of their normal restraints? I call it thinking outside the box or coloring outside the lines, because that's where the fun is. That's sometimes where spirit is there to assist you in a great inspiration or a great idea, and having a synergy of energy also with people who think like that.
Right. And
That's fun.
our view of outside the box is to take your attention into your heart and listen to that inner guidance. There's actually a guidance system in each human heart that says, okay, even though you're in this pickle, here's what your heart's asking you to do or suggesting you do. And if you listen to that and trust that and follow that, good things are going to happen.
So intention is really, really important. Well, focused intention.
Right.